let's go to Manhattan. It's a Wednesday night. So I'm just going to tell you both right now, having covered this league very closely the last several years, the amount of times that I've seen a St. John Xavier game not filled at Carnesecca Arena, and the couple of times they had played at the Garden the past couple of years, there's been 7,000 people in the building. It's a lot. A lot. Tonight, you're watching that game. There's 14,000, 15,000 people in the stands on a weeknight at Madison Square Garden. And St. John's is down by 16. And for the third time in the last 7 games, they have overcome a deficit of larger than 15 points to win a game. Was it pretty? Far from it. They can't shoot to save their lives at times from downtown. But somehow, some way, CJ, St. John's is 17-3. They're 8-1 in the Big East. They've won 12 of their last 13 games. They win 79-71 over Xavier. Heartbreaker for Xavier, to say the least. But CJ Moore, Rick Pitino is doing that damn thing. What do you make of the Red Storm?
Well, speaking of roster construction and finding guys that kind of fit you, he's found some dudes that just will play their balls off. They're long, they're athletic, and they freaking guard you. You know, offensively, they're going to have nights where they really struggled like they had moments tonight. But, man, Xavier could not run offense late in that game. Like, they could not find anything comfortable. It basically came down to every possession late clock was almost ISO, man, hope you throw in something. Because St. John's just basically was like, you're not getting anything. You're not going to be able to run any kind of actions. And they're switchable. They're long. Man, they can really, really, really guard you. And he went out and got dudes that can guard. And he gets those guys in the best shapes of their lives. You know, you've always heard about his old Kentucky teams and the conditioning stuff he'll put guys through. And this is just an example of that. Like, these guys are well conditioned. And you can see late in games, there's just no give. And that's what that was tonight. Like, there's a reason. You had the stat earlier, John. What was it that they're plus what in the second half this year?
Yeah, I've got the note here. Good segue here. Because in the second half of games, they're the second best team in scoring margin. I haven't updated the stat yet, but this is what it was as of a couple days ago. Best second half scoring margin among power conference teams this year. Duke, plus 185. There's some people who believe they're the best team in the country. Auburn's plus 168. Tennessee's plus 161. Above both of them, St. John's at plus 170. And on this night, they're down by 10 at halftime. They outscore Xavier 35-25 in the second half, and in overtime 14-6. CJ, you're right. Like, I joke about it. But I do say this because two coaches have said this to me, opposing coaches. In the second half, they've taken our manhood. What they're trying to say is in the second half, they just hit this gear that other teams cannot hit from a physicality and hustle standpoint. And they are the classic case of, like, if you like old school Northeast basketball, that's what Pitino has cooking here, Mike. And they are legit. They have punched that door down, and they're showing that they're just going to outwill teams. And they did it again tonight.
Yeah, and you talked about the margin, right, in the second half margin. I mean, all three of those teams that you mentioned are really good defensive teams. So that's part of what contributes to that. But there may not be a scarier team in the country when St. John's gets into desperation mode. Like, when they get into desperation mode, it is blouses. Like, and CJ, you touched on it. Everything was east-west for Xavier in the second half. I mean, everything St. John's defense was impenetrable. There were no gaps. Switching 5 ways, switching up, getting into you. I mean, at one point, Sean Miller turned to his bench, is like, I can't have any bigs in here because I need all guards, I need all ball handlers, or we're just going to turn it over every possession. So they put you in such a bind. And I thought in the second half they played to their strengths. They said, hey, let's lean on our defense. Let's turn you over and let's eliminate our deficiencies. Let's stop shooting threes. We were 1 for 9 in the first half. They took 3 threes in the second half in overtime combined. So they took that out of the equation. And I thought that was the difference. And we'll see what the full resume ends up looking like for them. But I mean, let's be real, right? They have 3 losses right now, 17-3. Those 3 losses are by a combined 5 points. Like they are 3 possessions away from being 20-0. And that's kind of wild to think about when you look at it that way. They've been just dominant in a lot of these games. Good.
You do have to bring up the fact that, and I totally agree with you on the 5 points thing. Had they beaten Baylor, they would have played Tennessee. Now who knows?
Fair.
But you never know if that game
would have been in the 40s.
Yeah.
They would have played that one in the 40s.
Yeah, it would have
St.
been
John's
Tony
can win
Bennett
that game. St. John's could absolutely win that game against
That's
Tennessee.
the point. That's the
They're
point.
similar though. They're similar to Tennessee.
Yeah.
They just don't have the Chaz Lanier that can hit 5 threes or 6, 7 threes in a game. But they're kind of similar teams. They just wear on you physically.
Yeah,
right.
I'll just share. We have to move on, but I'm just going to share this here briefly. This is the quote of the night from Rick Pitino that sums up this team. Quote: "We cannot take losses. It's a non-negotiable thing for us." And that's the attitude we have. And that's why we come back. I think these guys have a great fear of losing. A great fear, and that's a good thing. Yeah, the fear is that they'd have to put up with you the next day, and nobody wants to practice like that because that's what it is. Rick Pitino gets you to want to win so bad that the alternative, you can't have it. Let's go.